always tells me they're afraid to train their kid for power in season because they think it's going to mess up their contact quality. But here's the deal. The hitters who struggle with power are usually dealing with the same issues that are hurting their contact quality. So in this video, I'm going to break down the 4 most common mechanical flaws that rob hitters of power that when you fix them, they actually end up helping you fix your contact quality too. So these are the exact same things I worked on with my own daughter who was 5 feet tall in the middle of her 12U fall season, and we were able to add 45 feet to how far she could hit the ball. So let's break these down in this video, and I'll give you some simple tests along the way to see if your hitter has these flaws too. Flaw number 1, the upper body going too early. And the first thing that we look for here is watching what the upper body is doing as the foot is getting in the ground. And if you see the torso starting to rotate or the hand starting to drop before the front foot gets into the ground, that's gonna be a problem. And so when we run hitters through our 17-point Power Leaks assessment and we see this move, 9 times out of 10, those hitters have low rotational acceleration scores. And here's why. Your body has something in it called fascial lines. So you want to think of these like rubber bands. And if you stretch them quickly before you release them, you get way more explosiveness out of your body. But if the hands are dropping too early before the foot lands, you never get that stretch. So you lose a huge amount of potential power that fascial system could help you provide. Now, I say 9 out of 10 because some hitters are just tighter movers, but here's what you always see in those hitters if they're good. Even if things are starting early, like the upper body, they end up firing their hips before they fire their hands. And you can see the stretching happening between the hips and the shoulder as they separate. And this move is important because it also helps with contact. Because one of the most common misses in youth hitters is where? Being under the ball, right? And when you train the hands to work up and back, instead of dropping too early, you clean that miss hit up almost immediately. And we hear this all the time from parents. They come to us for power, and they're like, wait, why is my kid making better contact all of a sudden too? And that's one of the reasons. But here's what's interesting. When a hitter has this issue, it's almost never because they were taught something wrong. It's because their body literally can't control moving in those positions yet with the hips separating from the shoulders. And I'll show you how to fix that here at the end of this video, but before we get there, let's talk about flaw number 2. No hip coil in the back hip, where what we want to see is the hitter's belt buckle starting to turn slightly towards the catcher as they load into their back leg, like you see here with guys like Bryce Harper, coiling his pelvis around the rear hip like he's screwing his rear leg into the ground. And when we get hitters to do this, we'll often see 2 or 3 mile an hour increases in bat speed. But here's the key. You have to do this the right way. Where what you want to do is when you're working on this, film your hitter from behind and you want to draw a line behind their butt right when they pick up their foot. And as they stride forward, their butt should be moving up back and past that line. And then you want to draw another line when their front foot lands right on their front foot, and at contact, their hips should be between those 2 lines. And that's how you know they have loaded up correctly and landed in a position to do damage. Because when hitters lose the space in their posture with their hands and they don't load that pelvis right and stride out right, that's when they get jammed and that's when they start making weak contact. Which brings us to flaw number 3, no lead leg block. Where at contact, the front leg should be in the act of straightening. And if it's still bending, you're actually losing power. You want to think about it like this. Imagine you are squatting on a trampoline, and when I clap, you have to jump up. Well, when you start to jump, all of your energy gets bled out into the ground because it's not a stiff surface that can send energy back up where you put force in. You can push as hard as you want, but the energy is just going to get absorbed. So that's what happens when the front leg doesn't straighten into contact. It bleeds energy out through the lower half of the body and never sends it up to the hands. And there's 2 ways to know this is happening. The front leg bending at contact is the first. But number 2 is, does the back heel go backwards instead of getting pulled forward by the hip as the hitter is making contact? And this matters for making contact too because of something called drifting, where if you draw a line at the front hip when the lead leg, that heel gets into the ground, you draw a line on the front hip should not move past that line during the swing. And if it does, their whole body is drifting forward and it leaks energy, but it's also important for this reason. Because when your head is moving forward like that, your eyes are literally trying to track a moving ball from a moving platform. And the more your head's moving, the harder it is for your brain to judge where it actually is. That's why in sports like golf or shooting, they talk about keeping the head stable. Because once the head starts drifting, depth perception gets way harder. Which brings us to flaw number 4, stopping rotation of the upper body too early. And this one gets missed all the time, where the body stops rotating too early at contact. Where if you watch this hitter, their chest is actually stopping right when their barrel hits the ball. It doesn't rotate anymore. And then when the barrel ends up pointing towards the pitcher, you end up seeing the back of their hand. But if you compare that swing to a hitter like Dansby Swanson, what you see him do is the front of his shirt, you see it at contact, and then you see his shoulders keep rotating until you see the back of his shirt. That's what it looks like to continue upper body rotation, and that's what allows him to transfer more energy into the ball. But it does something else too. It helps him keep his palm up through contact instead of rolling over. So he hits balls better to the pull side, which is one of the biggest keys to hitting the ball hard in the air, instead of pulling it on the ground. So those are our 4 mechanical issues that when you fix them, almost always improve both power and contact, which is why we're able to help hitters add 30 to 50 feet to how far they can hit the ball in season. But there's just one problem. Most parents see these things and then they go try to fix them with verbal cues. Don't drop your hands, use your legs, stay back, eye on the ball, elbow up. But here's what we found. When a hitter has one of these issues, they almost always will fail a specific motor control test that matches that body's ability to control that movement. Meaning, their body literally doesn't have the coordination yet to do what you are asking them to do. And that's why it doesn't show up in the games. Not because they aren't trying, not because you don't know what you're trying to fix, but because they can't access it when they're going at full speed. They can't control it. So before you try to fix any of these moves, you need to know if that's the actual problem or if they have a motor control problem. So in the next video, I'm going to walk you through 3 simple tests that we use to figure out exactly what your hitter is missing so you don't have to guess anymore about this stuff.